Your facilities. The conference room erupted in laughter. Aretha Williams stood at the door holding a tablet and a single-file folder. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She walked to the table, set the folder down, and said 7 words that would end a $30 million deal. This contract has a fatal compliance flaw. The laughter stopped. This is Unfiltered Black Tales, stories where assumptions cost people everything. Albert Orleans leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, smirk still plastered on his face. Fatal, he repeated. That's dramatic. Aretha pulled out a chair and sat. No one had invited her to sit. Albert's smirk wavered. She opened the folder, slid a single sheet across the table towards Susan Adele, the regional director. Page 73, liability waiver. It contradicts your state filing from March. Susan leaned forward. Her eyes scanned the document. Her face changed. Albert saw it. Susan? She's right, Susan said quietly. This wasn't in the version I approved. Silence dropped over the room like a wet towel. Albert's neck flushed red. He looked at Aretha, then at Susan, then back at Aretha. Who sent you here? Operations. Operations doesn't send. He stopped himself. Did you request this, Susan? Susan shook her head. Aretha clicked her pen once. The sound echoed. I wasn't requested, she said. I was assigned. Albert stood slowly. He was tall, used to using it. Aretha stayed seated, looked up at him without moving her head. Look, Albert said, voice softer now, like he was talking to someone who didn't understand. I don't know what box you're trying to check, but this is a $30 million expansion. We've got investors, timelines, board expectations, and incomplete filings. His jaw clenched. You're really going to sit here and tell me? I'm not telling you anything, Aretha interrupted. I'm showing you. She pulled out a second document, set it in front of Susan. Page 18, Subcontractor Indemnity Clause. It voids enforceability in the event of a dispute. Susan's hand trembled slightly as she picked it up. Albert noticed. What he didn't notice was the way everyone else in the room had gone completely still. One of the junior executives shifted in his seat. The leather squeaked. No one looked at him. Susan read the page twice. Then she looked at Albert. We can't sign this. The air conditioning hummed. No one spoke. Albert's phone buzzed on the table. He didn't check it. This is a clerical error, he said. It voids your legal standing, Aretha said. If a vendor pulls out or disputes terms, you'd have no recourse. You'd lose millions in the first lawsuit alone. Albert stared at her. She stared back. Her expression hadn't changed once, not when he laughed, not when he challenged her, not now. He sat down, slowly. So what do you want? His voice was tight now, thin. A thank you? A promotion? Aretha closed the folder, stood, smoothed her blazer once. I want you to postpone the signing until legal reconciles the documents. That'll take weeks. 3 days, if you cooperate. Albert laughed, but it didn't sound like laughter. It sounded like air escaping a tire. You've got to be kidding me. Aretha picked up her tablet, turned toward the door. Wait. She stopped, didn't turn around. Albert's voice dropped. What's your name again? Aretha Williams. Williams, he said it slowly, testing it. You new here? No. Then how come I've never seen you? She turned, looked at him for a long, quiet moment. You weren't looking. She left. The door clicked shut behind her. No one moved. Albert sat staring at the empty chair where she'd been.
Susan's pen rolled off the table. She didn't pick it up. Albert's phone buzzed again. This time, he looked. 7 missed calls, all from the CEO. His hands went cold.
48 hours later, Albert was in his office when his assistant knocked. "Susan's here." "Send her in." Susan walked in holding a printout. She didn't sit. She didn't say hello. She just set the paper on his desk. Albert picked it up, read the header. R.E. Contract Compliance Review. A. Williams, Senior Vice President of Legal Operations. He read it again, then a third time. The words didn't change. Senior Vice President? Susan nodded. Albert's throat went dry. "She's been with the company for 9 years, Susan said. She oversees all major contract approvals, including ours." Albert set the paper down. His hands felt cold. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "You didn't ask." He looked up sharply. "You knew?" "I knew her title. I didn't know she was coming to our meeting." Albert leaned back in his chair, stared at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above him. "I called her facilities." Susan said nothing. "I laughed at her." Still nothing. "In front of everyone." Susan finally sat. "She could have corrected you." "She didn't need to." Albert pressed his palms into his eyes. His collar felt too tight. He loosened his tie. It didn't help. "Does she report to anyone?" "The CEO." "Of course she does." He dropped his hands, looked at Susan. "What do I do?" "You apologize." "She's not going to accept it." "Probably not," Susan said, "but you still do it." Albert stared at the memo, at Aretha's name, at the title he'd missed completely. "How did I not know?" Susan stood. "Because you didn't think it mattered." She left. The door closed softly behind her. Albert sat alone in his office. Outside, the sun was setting. The light coming through his window turned everything orange. He picked up his phone, stared at the CEO's missed calls, put it down, picked up the memo again, read it one more time. Then he stood and went to find her. Albert found her 2 hours later. 3rd floor conference wing, alone, reviewing documents on a laptop. The glow from the screen lit her face in the dim room. He knocked on the open door. She looked up, didn't smile, didn't frown. "Mr. Orleans, can I talk to you for a second?" She gestured to the chair across from her. He sat. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched. Somewhere down the hall, a printer hummed to life. Albert's coffee had gone cold in his hand, but he didn't put it down. Finally, he exhaled. I was out of line. Aretha closed her laptop, folded her hands on the table. "You were. I didn't know who you were. Would it have mattered?" The question landed like a punch. Albert opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "I don't know," he said quietly. Aretha nodded. "That's honest. I'm sorry." She studied him, not coldly, just carefully, like she was deciding something. Apology noted. "That's it? What else do you want?" "I don't know. Forgiveness?" Aretha tilted her head slightly. "You want me to make you feel better about what you did?" Albert's throat tightened. "No, I just—" He stopped, started again. "I embarrassed you. I disrespected you in front of people." "You embarrassed yourself," Aretha said quietly. "I was fine." She wasn't angry. That was the worst part. She was calm, completely calm, like she'd seen this before, like she'd expected it. Albert felt something crack inside his chest. "I've been doing this for 15 years, he said. "I've closed deals in 8 countries. I've built teams from the ground up. I've never been this wrong about someone." "You weren't wrong about me," Aretha said. "You were wrong about what mattered." Silence. Albert looked down at his hands. They were shaking slightly. He pressed them flat against his knees. "The contract's clean now," Aretha said. "You can sign tomorrow." "Thank you." She nodded. He stood, hesitated. "For what it's worth, you were right. About all of it." Aretha's expression softened, just slightly. "I know." Albert turned to leave, stopped at the door. Did you report what happened?" Aretha looked at him. "No." "Why not?" She leaned back in her chair. "Because I didn't need to." Albert swallowed, nodded, and left. The signing happened the next day. Albert stood at the head of the table. Susan beside him, investors on speakerphone. Aretha wasn't there, but her name was on every page, initials in blue ink, approvals dated and time-stamped. Precise, professional, perfect. After it was done, Albert loosened his tie and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Susan looked at him. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said, "I think so." He asked his assistant to send flowers to Aretha's office. An hour later, they came back. She'd declined them, sent a note instead. Albert opened it slowly. 4 words: "Do better next time." He stared at the note for a long time. Then he folded it carefully, put it in his wallet, kept it there. 1 week later, Albert was in a meeting when his phone buzzed. A memo from the CEO. Subject: Mandatory Leadership Training, Bias and Professional Conduct. His name was on the list. So was Susan's. So were 3 others from that conference room. The junior executive who'd laughed the loudest, the operations manager who'd smirked, the consultant who'd said nothing. Albert's stomach dropped. He looked up. Susan was staring at him from across the table. She'd gotten the same memo. Neither of them said anything, but they both knew. Aretha hadn't reported them. She hadn't needed to. Someone else had been watching. 2 months passed. Albert attended the training. 4 sessions, 8 hours total. He sat in the back, took notes, didn't speak unless asked. On the 3rd session, the facilitator showed a case study. A compliance officer, dismissed by executives, ignored, laughed at. The company lost $17 million in the lawsuit that followed. Albert's pen stopped moving. He looked down at his notes, saw Aretha's name, closed the notebook. 3 months later, Albert was in the elevator when Aretha stepped in. She pressed the button for the 5th floor. He pressed 6th. The doors began to close. Silence filled the small space. Albert cleared his throat. "The expansion's ahead of schedule." "I heard." "Your contract work saved us from a lawsuit last week. Vendor tried to back out. We had leverage because of your edits." Aretha glanced at him. "Good." The elevator climbed. Albert shifted his weight. I've been recommending you to other divisions. I hope that's okay." She studied him for a moment. "Why?" "Because you're the best at what you do." Aretha's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Took you long enough to notice." The elevator slowed. 5th floor. The doors opened. She stepped out, stopped, turned back. "Mr. Orleans?" He looked up. "The CEO asked about you yesterday." His stomach dropped. She smiled, just barely. "I told him you were learning." The doors closed. Albert stood alone, staring at his reflection in the steel. He exhaled slowly, watched his breath fog the metal. And for the first time in months, the weight in his chest felt a little lighter. Albert kept the note in his wallet for 2 years. Every time he opened it, he saw the same 4 words: "Do better next time." He never forgot the conference room, the laughter, the silence that followed, the look on Aretha's face when she sat down uninvited, the way she'd spoken, calm, controlled, certain, and he never made the same mistake again. Not because he was afraid, but because he finally understood. Respect isn't given by title. It's not earned by position. It's not measured by authority. It's earned by how you see people when no one's watching,
by how you listen when you think you already know the answer, by what you assume when someone walks into a room. Aretha taught him that, without raising her voice, without reporting him, without needing to prove anything. She'd shown him exactly who she was, and made him see exactly who he'd been. Years later, Albert would tell the story, not often, but sometimes, when a new executive joined the team, when someone made an assumption, when someone laughed before they listened. He'd pull out his wallet, show them the note, and say, "I once laughed at the woman who saved my career. She never let me forget it, and I never wanted to." If this story meant something to you, subscribe and turn on notifications for more.